YouTube, Facebook simultaneously. Send out a notice. All right, give me a second. Okay, there it is. Okay, notice went out, and check to make sure we're streaming. Yes, we are streaming live. Okay. Okay. Okay, everybody. Good to see everybody again. And all right, let's chant. Thank you all for coming for our evening or morning class, reading, explanation of the philosophy. Okay. What should we chant today? All right, one of my favorites. Sorry,
Raja Pratana Gores Share Adiade Muli Diane Goranga Itabe Mulaka Sere Ati Ati Mulite Nayane Mabedi Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Nichai Go Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvacharya Ostatella Satashi Shima His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanana Vastavanana Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Gijai Shishi Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Saim Kund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Maturadam Kijai Jagannath Sami Kijai Munamai Kijai Shimati Lasi Devi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Pranananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarane Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we're continuing with our reading of Krishna book. This is my life and soul to read Krishna book to you all today. And I wish I'd been traveling, but Krishna didn't have that planned for today. Anyway, so let's go on to, actually read the translation. When will that opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of material anxieties and desires so that I can understand Vrindavana? When shall I be very eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis are my only shelter. In constant separation from them, I remain Narottamadas, Doctor. Okay, let's go on to the Krishna book. Om Gana Timirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, Krishna book. So we are on the 50th chapter of Krishna book, and the 50th chapter is entitled Krishna Erects the Dwarka Fort. And this is very interesting. chapter, as all of them are. Let me just get this set up. So, Krishna erects the Dwarka fort. Upon Kamsa's death, his two wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages of life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live under the protection of her grown-up sons. Or if she has no grown-up sons, she must go back to her father and live as a widow under his protection. It appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. Therefore, after his wives became widows, they returned to the shelter of their father. Kamsa had 2 queens, Asti and Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jarasandha, the lord of the Bihar province known in those days as Magadha. After reaching home, the 2 queens explained their awkward position following Kamsa's death. The king of Magadha, Jarasandha, was mortified on hearing of the pitiable condition of his daughters. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. He decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, the whole dynasty of the Yadu should be killed. He began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanxes, consisting of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jarasandha prepared 13 such military phalanxes to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all his military strength, he attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Shri Krishna, who appeared like an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jarasandha, which appeared like an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. He also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were overwhelmed with fear. He began to think within himself about his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation before him. He thought that since he was not going to conquer the kingdom of Magadha, to kill the king of Magadha, namely Jarasandha, was useless. His mission was to diminish the overburdening population of the whole world. Therefore, he took the opportunity to face so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jarasandha had appeared before him, and he decided to kill the entire force of Jarasandha so that he would go back and reorganize his military strength. While Krishna was thinking in that way, 2 beautiful chariots, fully equipped with drivers, weapons, flags, and other paraphernalia, arrived for him from outer space. Krishna saw the 2 chariots present before him and immediately addressed his elder brother Balaram, who was also known as Sankarshan. My dear elder brother, best among the Aryans, you are the Lord of the universe, and specifically you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sense great danger before the soldiers of Jarasandha, and they are very much aggrieved. Just to give them protection, your chariot is also here, filled with weapons. I request you to sit on your chariot and kill all these soldiers, the entire military strength of the enemy. The 2 of us have descended on this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose forces and give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Please let us execute it. Thus Krishna and Balaram, the descendants of Darshaha, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasandha. After equipping themselves with military dress, Krishna and Balaram mounted their chariots. Krishna rode the chariot of which Dwarka was the driver. With a small army they came out of the city of Mathura, blowing their respective conch shells. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, when they heard the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, their hearts were shaken. When Jarasandha saw Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because they happened to be related to his grandsons. He specifically addressed Krishna as Purusha Dhamma, meaning the lowest among men. Actually, Krishna is known in all Vedic scriptures as Purushottama, the highest among men. Jarasandha had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottama, but great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushadama, to be one who makes all other personalities go downward. Actually, no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jarasandha said, "It will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram." Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasandha specifically addressed him as the killer of his own relatives. Kamsa had killed many of his own nephews. Yet Jarasandha did not take notice. But because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle Kamsa, Jarasandha tried to criticize him. That is the way of demoniac dealings. Demons do not try to find their own faults or those of their friends, but try to find the faults of their enemies. Jarasandha also criticized Krishna for not even being a Kshatriya. Because he was raised by Maharaj Nanda, Krishna was not a Kshatriya but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas, and the word Gupta can also be used to mean hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda Maharaj. Jarasandha accused Krishna of 3 faults: that he killed his own maternal uncle, that he was not even a Kshatriya, and that he was hidden in his childhood. And therefore Jarasandha felt ashamed to fight with him. Next he turned to Balaram and addressed him. "You, Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with him, and if you have patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows. Thus you can be promoted to heaven." It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that a Kshatriya can benefit in either of 2 ways while fighting. If a Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the results of victory, but even if killed, he is promoted to the heavenly kingdom. After hearing Jarasandha speak in that way, Krishna answered, "My dear King Jarasandha, heroes do not talk much. Rather, they show their prowess. Because you are talking a great deal, it appears that you are assured of your death in this battle. We do not care to hear you any longer, for it is useless to hear the words of a person who is going to die, or one who is very distressed." To fight with Krishna, Jarasandha surrounded him from all sides with great military strength. As the sun appears covered by cloudy air and dust, Krishna, the supreme sun, was covered by the military strength of Jarasandha. Krishna and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda and palm trees respectively. The women of Mathura all stood on the tops of the houses, palace, and gates to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Jarasandha's military force and was no longer visible to them, they were so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Jarasandha. His small army of soldiers was being harassed, so he immediately took up his bow named Shanga. He took his arrows from their quiver, and one after another he set them on the bowstring and shot them toward the enemy. They were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Jarasandha were quickly killed. The incessant arrows shot by Krishna appeared like a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Jarasandha. As Krishna released his arrows, all the elephants gradually began to fall, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, their necks severed, and the chariots fell also, along with their flags of the fighters and drivers on the chariots. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell in the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants, horses, and men were killed, and their blood flowed just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of men appeared like snakes, and their heads like tortoises. That's ghastliness. It's one of the indirect rasas. The dead bodies of the elephants appeared like small islands, and the dead horses appeared like sharks. By the arrangement of the supreme will, there was a great river of blood filled with paraphernalia. The hands and legs of the infantry soldiers floated just like different kinds of fish. The hair of the soldiers floated like seaweed and moss, and the floating bows of the soldiers resembled waves of the river. And all the jewelry from the bodies of the soldiers and commanders seemed like many pebbles flowing down the river of blood. Phew. Lord Balaram, who was also known as Sankarshan, began to fight with his club in such a heroic way that the river of blood created by Krishna overflooded. Cowards became very much afraid upon seeing the ghastly and horrible scene, and heroes began to talk delightedly among themselves about the heroism of the 2 brothers. Although Jarasandha was equipped with a vast ocean of military strength, the fighting of Lord Krishna and Balaram converted the whole situation into a ghastly scene far beyond ordinary fighting. Persons of ordinary merit cannot estimate how it could be possible, but when such activities are accepted as pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose will everything is possible, then this can be understood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates, maintains, and dissolves the cosmic manifestation merely by his will. For him to create such a vast scene of devastation while fighting with an enemy is not so wonderful. And yet, because Krishna and Balaram were fighting with Jarasandha just like ordinary human beings, the affair appeared wonderful. When all the soldiers of Jarasandha had been killed and he was the only one left alive, certainly he was very much depressed. Shri Balaram immediately arrested him with great strength, just as one lion captures another. But while Lord Balaram was binding Jarasandha with the rope of Varuna and ordinary ropes also, Lord Krishna, with a greater plan in mind, asked Lord Balaram not to arrest him. Krishna then released Jarasandha. As a great fighting hero, Jarasandha was ashamed, but he decided that he would no longer live as a king, but would resign from his position in the royal order and go to the forest to practice meditation under severe austerities and penances. As he was returning home with his royal friends, however, they advised him not to retire, but to regain strength to fight again with Krishna in the near future. The princely friends of Jarasandha instructed him that ordinarily it would not have been possible for him to be defeated by the strength of the Yadu kings. The defeat he had experienced was simply due to his ill luck. The princely order encouraged King Jarasandha. His fighting, they said, was certainly heroic, therefore he should not take his defeat very seriously, since it was due only to his past misdeeds. After all, there was no fault in his fighting. In this way, Jarasandha, the king of the Magadha province, having lost all his strength and having been insulted by his arrest and subsequent release, could do nothing but return to his kingdom. Thus Lord Krishna conquered the soldiers of Jarasandha. Although Krishna's army was tiny in comparison to Jarasandha's, not a pinch of his strength was lost, whereas all of Jarasandha's men were killed. The denizens of heaven were very much pleased, and they offered their respects by chanting in glorification of the Lord and showering him with flowers, accepting the victory with great appreciation. Jarasandha returned to his kingdom, and Mathura city was saved from the danger of imminent attack. The citizens of Mathura organized the combined services of professional singers like Sutas and Magadhas, along with poets who could compose nice songs, and they began to chant the victory glorification of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna entered the city after the victory, many bugles, conchas, and kettle drums sounded, and the vibrations of various musical instruments like berries, turias, venas, flutes, and mridangas all joined together to make a beautiful reception. While Krishna was entering, the whole city was cleansed. All the different streets and roads were sprinkled with water, and the inhabitants, being joyous, decorated their respective houses and shops with flags and festoons. The Brahmanas chanted Vedic mantras in numerous places. The people constructed road crossings and gates at entrances to lanes and streets. When Lord Krishna was entering the nicely decorated city of Mathura in a festive attitude, the ladies and girls of Mathura prepared different kinds of flower garlands to make the ceremony more auspicious. In accordance with the Vedic custom, they took yogurt mixed with fresh green grass and strewed it here and there to make the victory jubilation even more auspicious. As Krishna passed through the street, all the ladies and women regarded him with eyes bright with great affection. Krishna and Balaram carried various kinds of ornaments, jewels, and other booty carefully collected from the battlefield and presented it all to King Ugrasena. Krishna thus offered his respect to his grandfather, because Ugrasena was at that time the crowned king of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, besieged the city of Mathura not only once, but 17 times in the same way, equipped with the same number of military phalanxes. Each and every time he was defeated and all his soldiers were killed by Krishna, and each time he had to return home disappointed. Each time the princely order of the Yadu dynasty arrested Jarasandha in the same way, and again released him in an insulting manner. and each time Jarasandha shamelessly returned home. While Jarasandha was attempting his 18th attack, a Yavana king somewhere to the south of Mathura became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, that's Western culture, known as Kalyavana, was induced to attack by Narada. This story is narrated in the Vishnu Purana. Once Gargamuni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law. When the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard the taunt, they laughed at him, and Gargamuni became angry at the Yadu kings. He decided he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty, so he pleased Lord Shiva and received from him the benediction of his son. He begot this son, Kalyavana, in the wife of a Yavana king. This Kalyavana inquired from Narada, who were the most powerful kings in the world. Narada informed him that the Yadus were the most powerful. Thus informed, Kalyavana attacked the city of Mathura at the same time that Jarasandha tried to attack it for the 18th time. Kalyavana was very eager to declare war on a king of the world who would be a suitable combatant for him, but he had not found any. However, being informed about Mathura by Narada, he thought it wise to attack the city with 13 million Yavana soldiers. When Mathura was thus besieged, Lord Sri Krishna began to consider, in consultation with Baladev, how much the Yadu dynasty was in distress, being threatened by the attacks of two formidable enemies, Jarasandha and Kalyavana. Time was growing short. Kalyavana was already besieging Mathura from all sides, and it was expected that the day after next, Jarasandha would also come, equipped with the same number of divisions of soldiers as his previous 17 attempts. Krishna was certain that Jarasandha would take advantage of the opportunity to capture Mathura when it was also being besieged by Kalyavana. He therefore thought it wise to take precautionary measures for defending against an attack upon Mathura from two strategic points. If both Krishna and Balaram were engaged in fighting with Kalyavana at one time, Jarasandha might come in at another to attack the whole Yadu family and take his revenge. Jarasandha was very powerful, and having been defeated 17 times, he might vengefully kill the members of the Yadu dynasty or arrest them and take them to his kingdom. Krishna therefore decided to construct a formidable fort where no two-legged animal, either man or demon, could enter. He decided to keep his relatives there so they would be free to fight the enemy. It appears that formerly Dwarka was also part of the kingdom of Mathura. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that Krishna constructed the fort in the midst of the sea. Remnants of the fort Krishna constructed still exist in the Bay of Dwarka. Actually, have been found by scuba divers and others. Krishna first of all constructed a very strong wall covering 96 square miles. It's not that big. It's like 10 miles by 10 miles. And the wall itself was within the sea. It was certainly wonderful and was planned and constructed by Vishwakarma. No ordinary architect could construct such a fort within the sea, but an architect like Vishwakarma, who is considered to be the engineer among the demigods, can execute such wonderful craftsmanship anywhere in the universe. And huge planets can float in weightlessness in outer space by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Surely the architectural construction of a fort covering 96 square miles within the sea was not very wonderful. As it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, that within this new well-constructed city, developed within the sea, had regular planned roads, streets, and lanes. They were also well-planned parks and gardens filled with plants known as kalpa vriksha, or desire trees. These desire trees are not like the ordinary trees in the material world. The desire trees are found in the spiritual world. By Krishna's will, everything is possible. So, such desire trees were planted in Dwarka, the city constructed by Krishna. The city was also filled with many palaces and gopuras, or big gates. These gopuras are still found in some of the larger temples. They are very high and constructed with fine artistic skill. Such palaces and gates held golden water pots, kalashas. These water pots on the gates or on the palaces are considered auspicious signs. Almost all the palaces were skyscrapers. In each and every house there were underground rooms containing big golden and silver pots for stocking grains, and there were many golden water pots within the rooms. The bedrooms were all bedecked with jewels, and the floors were mosaic pavements of Mucukunda jewels. The Vishnu deity worshipped by the descendants of Yadu was installed in each house in the city. The residential quarters were so arranged that the different castes, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, had their respective quarters, and that's a tradition in India, and especially the temple towns like in Srirangam, where you actually find the center circle around the temple is the Brahmanas, then the next circle or square, that's the Kshatriyas, next one Vaishyas, next one Shudras. And that's because people like to associate with like-minded people. And also because basically the Brahmanas did not want to get influenced by the modes of nature of the other castes, especially the Shudras. It appears from this that the caste system mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita existed even at that time. Of course, the caste system is based on qualities of work, not on birth. In the center of the city was a residence made specifically for King Ugrasena. This was the most dazzling of all the houses. When the demigod Indra saw that Krishna was constructing a particular city of his own choice, he sent the celebrated Parijata tree of the heavenly planets to be planted in the new city, and he also sent a parliamentary house, Sudharma. The specific quality of this assembly house was that anyone participating in a meeting within it would overcome the influence of invalidity due to old age. Wow, I should go there. The demigod Varuna presented a horse which was all white except for black ears, which could run at the speed of the mind. Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods, presented the art of attaining the 8 perfectional stages of material opulence. In this way, all the demigods began to present their respective gifts according to their different capacities. There are 33 million demigods, each entrusted with a particular department of universal management. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's constructing a city of his own choice to present their respective gifts, making the city of Dwarka unique within the universe. This proves that while there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, none of them is independent of Krishna. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is the supreme master and all others are his servants. So all demigods took this opportunity to render service to Krishna when he was personally present within the universe. This example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities. When the new city was fully constructed, according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and installed Sri Balaram as the city's father. After this, he consulted with Balaram, and being garlanded with lotus flowers but carrying no weapons, he came out of the city to meet Kalyavana, who had already surrounded Mathura. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta, purport of the 50th chapter of Krishna. Krishna erects the Dwarka fort. Let's do 51. The deliverance of Mucukunda. Some devotees pronounce it as Mucukunda. It's not Mucukunda, it's Mucukunda. When Krishna came out of the city, Kalyavana, who had never seen Krishna before, saw him to be extraordinarily beautiful, dressed in yellow garments. Passing through Kalyavana's assembly of soldiers, Krishna appeared like a moon in the sky, passing through the assembly of the assembled clouds. Kalyavana was fortunate enough to see the lines of Srivatsa, a particular impression on the chest of Sri Krishna, and the Kaustuba jewel he was wearing. Kalyavana saw him, however, in his Vishnu form with a well-built body, 4 hands, and eyes like petals of a newly blooming lotus. Krishna appeared blissful with a handsome forehead and beautiful smiling face, restless eyebrows, and moving earrings. Before seeing Krishna, Kalyavana had heard about him from Narada, and now the descriptions of Narada were confirmed. Kalyavana noticed Krishna's specific marks and the jewels on his chest, his beautiful garland of lotus flowers, his lotus-like eyes, and similar beautiful bodily features. He concluded that this beautiful personality must be Vasudeva, for every description he had previously heard from Narada was substantiated by the presence of Krishna. Kalyavana was astonished to see Krishna passing through his army without any weapon in his hands and without any chariot. He was simply walking on foot. Kalyavana had come to fight with Krishna, yet he had sufficient principles not to take up any kind of weapon. He decided to fight with him hand to hand. Thus he prepared to capture Krishna and fight. Krishna, however, went ahead without looking at Kalyavana. Kalyavana followed him with a desire to capture him, but in spite of his swift running, he could not capture Krishna. Krishna cannot be captured even by great yogis traveling at the speed of the mind. He can be captured only by those who follow the path of devotional service, and Kalyavana was not practiced in devotional service. He wanted to capture Krishna, and since he could not do so, he followed him from behind. Kalyavana began running very fast, thinking, "Now I am nearer. I will capture him." But he could not. Krishna led him far away and entered the cave of the hill. Kalyavana thought that Krishna was trying to avoid fighting him and was therefore taking shelter of the cave. He rebuked him with the following words: "Oh, Krishna, I heard you were a great hero born in the dynasty of Yadu, but I see that you are running away from fighting like a coward. It is not worthy of your good name and family tradition." Kalyavana was following, running very fast, but still he could not catch Krishna because he was not freed from all contaminations of sinful life. According to Vedic culture, anyone who does not follow the regulative principles observed by the higher castes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, or even those observed by the laborer class, the Shudras, is called a Malecha or Yavana. The Vedic social situation is so planned that persons accepted as Shudras can gradually be elevated to the position of Brahmanas by the cultural advancement known as samskara, or the purificatory processes. Janmana jayate Shudra samskara bhavat rijam. In other words, by birth, everyone's a Shudra anyway, no matter what your family name is. The verdict of the Vedic scriptures is that no one becomes a Brahmana or Malecha simply by birth. By birth, everyone is accepted as a Shudra, which is what I just said. One has to elevate himself by the purificatory process to the stage of Brahminical life. If he doesn't, he degrades himself further. He is then called a Malecha or Yavana. Kalyavana belonged to the class of Malechas and Yavanas. Contaminated by sinful activities, he could not approach Krishna. The principles from which higher class men are restricted, namely illicit sexual indulgence, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, are an integral part of the lives of the Malechas and Yavanas. Sounds like ordinary people here in Western culture. Being bound by such sinful activities, one cannot make any advancement in God realization. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that only one who is completely freed from all sinful reactions can engage in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. When Krishna entered the cave of the hill, Kalyavana followed, chastising him with various harsh words. Krishna suddenly disappeared from the demon's sight, but Kalyavana followed and also entered the cave. The first thing he saw was a man lying down asleep within the cave. Kalyavana was eager to fight with Krishna, and when he could not see Krishna, but instead saw only a man lying down, he thought that Krishna was sleeping within the cave. Kalyavana was very much puffed up and proud of his strength, and he thought Krishna was avoiding the fight. Therefore he strongly kicked the sleeping man, thinking him to be Krishna. The sleeping man had been lying down for a long time. When awakened by the kicking of Kalyavana, he immediately opened his eyes and began to look around in all directions. At last he saw Kalyavana standing nearby. The man had been untimely awakened and was therefore very angry, and when he looked upon Kalyavana in his angry mood, rays of fire emanated from his eyes, and Kalyavana was burned to ashes within a moment. When Maharaj Parikshit heard this incident of Kalyavana's being burned to ashes, he inquired about the sleeping man from Shukadeva Goswami. Who was he? Why was he sleeping there? How had he achieved so much power that instantly by his glance, Kalyavana was burned to ashes? How did he happen to be lying down in the cave of the hill? He put many questions before Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva answered as follows. My dear king, this person was born in the very great family of King Ikshvaku, in which Lord Ramchandra was also born, and he happened to be the son of the great king known as Mandata. He himself was also a great soul and was known popularly as Mucukunda. King Mucukunda was a strict follower of the Vedic principles of Brahminical culture, and he was truthful to his promise. He was so powerful that even the demigods like Indra used to ask him to help in fighting the demons. And as such, he often fought against the demons to protect the demigods. The commander-in-chief of the demigods, known as Kartikeya, was satisfied with the fighting of King Mucukunda, But once he asked that the king, having taken too much trouble in fighting the demons, retire from fighting and take rest. Kartikeya addressed King Mucukunda, my dear king, you have sacrificed everything for the sake of the demigods. You had a very nice kingdom, undisturbed by any kind of enemy. But you left that kingdom, neglected your opulence and possessions, and never cared for fulfillment of your personal ambitions. Due to your long absence from your kingdom while fighting the demons on behalf of the demigods, your queen, your children, your relatives, and your ministers have all passed away in due course of time. Time and tide wait for no man. So now, even if you return to your home, you will find no one living there. The influence of time is very strong. Time is so powerful because it is a representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time is therefore stronger than the strongest. The influence of time can affect changes and subtle things without difficulty. No one can check the progress of time. As an animal tamer tames animals according to his will, time also adjusts things according to its own will. No one can supersede the arrangement made by the Supreme Time. Thus addressing Mucukunda, the demigod requested him to ask any benediction he might be pleased with, except the benediction of liberation. Liberation cannot be awarded by any living entity but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, another name of Lord Vishnu or Krishna is Mucukunda. He can award liberation. King Mucukunda had not slept for many, many years. He was engaged in the duty of fighting, and therefore he was very tired. So when the demigod offered a benediction, Mucukunda simply thought of sleeping. He replied as follows, my dear Kartikeya, best of the demigods, I want to sleep now, and I want from you the following benediction. Grant me the power to burn to ashes by my mere glance anyone who disturbs my sleeping and awakens me untimely. Please give me this benediction. The demigod agreed, and he also gave him the benediction that he would be able to take complete rest. Then King Mucukunda entered the cave of the mountain. On the strength of the benediction of Kartikeya, Mucukunda burned Kalyavana to ashes simply by glancing at him. When the incident was over, Krishna came before King Mucukunda. Krishna had actually entered the cave to deliver King Mucukunda because of his austerity, but Krishna did not appear before him first. He arranged that first Kalyavana would come before him. That is the way of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does one thing in such a way that many other purposes are served. He wanted to deliver King Mucukunda, who was sleeping in the cave, and at the same time he wanted to kill Kalyavana, who had attacked Mathura city. By this action he served all purposes. When Lord Krishna appeared before Mucukunda, the king saw him dressed in a yellow garment. His chest was marked with the symbol of Shivatsa, and the Kaustuba jewel hanging around his neck. Krishna appeared before him with 4 hands as Vishnu Murti, with a garland called Vaishyanti hanging from his neck down to his knees. He looked lustrous, his face was beautifully smiling, and he wore nice jeweled earrings on his ears. Krishna appeared more beautiful than a human can conceive. Not only did he appear in this feature, but he glanced over Mucukunda with great affection, attracting the king's mind. Although he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the oldest of all, he looked like a fresh young boy, and his movements were just like those of a free deer. Still, he appeared extremely powerful. His influence and vast power is so great that every human being should be afraid of him. When King Mucukunda saw Krishna's magnificent features, he wondered about his identity, and with great humility he asked the Lord, my dear Lord, may I inquire, how is it that you have happened to be in the cave of this mountain? Who are you? I can see that your feet are just like soft lotus flowers. How could you walk in the forest full of thorns and pebbles? I am simply surprised to see this. Are you not, therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the most powerful amongst the powerful? Are you not the original source of all illumination and fire? Can I consider you one of the great demigods like the sun god, the moon god, or Indra, the king of heaven? Or are you the predominating deity of some other planet? Mucukunda knew very well that every higher planetary system has a predominating deity. He was not ignorant like modern men who think that this planet Earth is full of living entities and all others are vacant. The inquiry from Mucukunda about Krishna's being the predominating deity of a planet unknown to him is quite appropriate. Because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, King Mucukunda could immediately understand that Lord Krishna, who had appeared before him in such an opulent feature, could not be one of the predominating deities of the material planets. He must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who has many Vishnu forms. Mucukunda therefore took him to be Purushottama, Lord Vishnu. He could see also that the dense darkness within the mountain cave had been dissipated by the Lord's presence. Therefore he could not be other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mucukunda knew very well that wherever the Lord is personally present by his transcendental name, qualities, form, and so on, there cannot be any darkness of ignorance. He's like a lamp placed in the darkness. He immediately illuminates a dark place. King Mucukunda was eager to know the identity of Lord Krishna, and therefore he said, O best of human beings, if you think I am fit to know your identity, kindly tell me who you are. What is your parentage? What is your occupational duty? And what is your family tradition? King Mucukunda thought it wise, however, to identify himself to the Lord first. Otherwise, he had no right to ask the Lord's identity. Etiquette is such that a person of less importance cannot ask the identity of a person of higher importance without first disclosing his own identity. King Mucukunda therefore told Lord Krishna, My dear Lord, let me first inform you of my identity. I belong to the most celebrated dynasty of King Ikshvaku, but personally I am not as great as my forefather. My name is Mucukunda. My father's name was Mandata, and my grandfather was the great King Yuvanashva. I was very much fatigued due to not resting for many thousands of years, and because of all this, my bodily limbs were slack and almost incapable of acting. To revive my energy, I was taking rest in this solitary cave, but I have been awakened by some unknown man who has forced me to wake up, although I was not willing to do so. For such an offensive act, I have burned this person to ashes simply by glancing over him. Fortunately, now I can see you in this grand and beautiful feature. I think, therefore, you are the cause of killing my enemy. My dear Lord, I must admit that due to your bodily effulgence unbearable to my eyes, I cannot see you properly. I can fully realize the influence of your effulgence has diminished my power. I can understand that you are quite fit for being worshipped by all living entities. Seeing King Mucukunda eager to know about his identity, Lord Krishna answered smilingly as follows. My dear king, it is practically impossible to tell about my birth, appearance, disappearance, and activities. Perhaps you know that my incarnation Anantadeva has unlimited mouths, and for an unlimited time he has been trying to narrate fully about my name, fame, qualities, activities, appearance, disappearance, and incarnations. But still he has not been able to finish. Therefore, it is not possible to know exactly how many names and forms I possess. It may be possible for a material scientist to estimate the number of atomic particles which make up this earthly planet, but the scientist cannot enumerate my unlimited names, forms, and activities. Many great sages and saintly persons have tried to list my different forms and activities, yet they have failed to make a complete list. But since you are so eager to know me, I may inform you that I have now appeared on this planet just to annihilate the demoniac principles of people in general and to reestablish the religious principles enjoined in the Vedas. I have been invited for this purpose by Brahma, the superintending deity of this universe, and thus I have now appeared in the dynasty of the Yadus as one of their family members. I have specifically taken my birth as the son of Vasudeva in the Yadu dynasty, and people therefore know me as Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. You may also know that I have killed Kamsa, who in a previous life was known as Kalanemi, as well as Palambasur and many other demons. They have acted as my enemies, and I have killed them. The demon who is present before you also acted as my enemy, and you have very kindly burned him to ashes by glancing over him. My dear King Mucukunda, you are my great devotee, and just to show you my causeless mercy, I have appeared in this cave. I am very affectionately inclined toward my devotees. And pray, and in your previous life, before you prayed, you have to make it. I have therefore come to see you to fulfill your desire. Now you can see me to your heart's content. My dear king, now you may ask from me any benediction you wish, and I am prepared to fulfill your desire. It is my eternal principle that anyone who comes under my shelter must have all his desires fulfilled by my grace. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. Now we're going to take questions and allow you to speak. I have to unmute you. and ask questions, and we'll continue from this point tomorrow. Okay. Very nice. So who has a question or comment? And you can type in the text window, you can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand. Does anybody have a
Gurudev, please
question?
accept my humble obeisances.
Yes. So, what's the question?
The Lord Kartikeya and the Lord Ganesha, they are the son of like Lord Shiva and Ma Durga. One is Lord Shiva is a tattva in itself, Ma Durga is a Sakti tattva. How come their kids are Jiva soul?
Because Krishna can also have jiva souls. Why is there a rule that actually Krishna or Lord Shiva cannot have jiva soul sons?
No, that is no rule. I was just imagining, like, if something comes out of Lord Shiva, he will follow in his own tattva, like, the father like son. So.
No, not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, Krishna can have sons. In one sense, we're all his sons. Sarva Joni Shikontiya Murtiya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Hadionir Ahambija Pradapita. Krishna is actually the father of everyone. We all came out of him. We're Jiva, Tattva. Krishna can have sons who are Shaktis. Krishna can have daughters who are Shaktis. Krishna doesn't have any rule book where he looks in the rules and says, "This, I'm not allowed to do this. I can only do that." Krishna makes the rules as he goes along, and those rules are absolute. Good question. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, Gopal, you have a question.
Please accept my obeisance, Srila Gurudev. It's mentioned here.
Yeah.
It's mentioned here that that Kalyavana came from the south, and south of India is pretty much all just India and Sri Lanka, and he's Yavana, so he wouldn't have come from the west, I suppose. So how do Yavanas end up in Bhartavarsha in a previous yuga?
Well, they were there. He comes from the south. Yeah, south of, Prabhupada said the south, or in the Christian book it says the south of Mathura, which indicates it wasn't too far south. It wasn't like in Andhra Pradesh or something like that. I just like reading like that. So, I mean, just like there, even when Krishna was present, they were Adivasi, right?
Adivasi?
Yeah. You know what an Adivasi is?
No, Gurudev.
Jungle people.
Oh, like the Aborigines that Prabhupada describes from Vrindavan.
Yeah, that's the Adivasis, the Aborigines. And they were certainly outside of the Vedic culture, whether they were considered Yavanas or Malechas, I don't really know. But that was even in Vrindavan. So there were certainly, I mean, even though there were much more qualified people than there are in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, basically, everybody, that everybody in Kali Yuga is actually basically Shudra. Kalo Shudra, Sambhavasana. And so, but in Dwarka Yuga, certainly, there were a lot of Yavanas and Malechas even in India. I mean,
Thank you.
Demons, so, yeah, there's no rule that there couldn't be any demons. Or, well, we hear about so many demons. And the
But most of the demons that we hear about in Krishna's pastimes, they were Vedic demons. I mean, they did sacrifices and had gurus and so forth.
Not Putana.
Not Putana?
No, she wasn't a Vedic demon. She's a witch. Left-handed tantra.
Thank you, Gurudev.
So it wasn't a Putana. It's not that everyone. I mean, every one of the demons that attacked Krishna were respecting the Brahmins and everything like that. I mean, there were actually demons who ate Brahmins. Even during Treta Yuga, you had the Rakshasas, and Treta Yuga was the previous yuga before the Dwarka Yuga. You had Rakshasas who were actually eating people. I mean, that's worse than a Malecha or a Yavana. I mean,
So,
Ravana probably called them man-eaters.
So Ravana was a Rakshasa, but there's some description that even the demigods would call Ravana to chant the Vedic hymns at
Yeah,
their
because
sacrifices.
he was mixed. He had Brahmin father and a demon mother. Kaikasi was his mother. Vishravas was his father. And so he pronounced all the mantras perfectly. He was very, very expert. So he had a Brahminical side. I guess on one side you could say he was Vedic demon, but not all the Rakshasas. I mean, Ravana was probably a lot more qualified than the other ones. But they would eat the sages. In the Dandakaranya farce, I mean, the sages actually went to Lord Ram to complain and said, you got to save us. You got to kill these Rakshasas. And so that means that they were man-eaters. Probably called them man-eaters. Man-eaters. So it's not that there weren't any Malechas or Yavanas around India. They were certainly there. I mean, Satya Yuga is a different thing. I doubt if there were too many Yavanas and Malechas, Rakshasas, or whatever in Satya Yuga. But when you get to Treta Yuga, Dwarka Yuga, well, incidentally, the interesting thing is that in this particular cycle of the yugas, the Dwarka Yuga and the Treta Yuga are actually reversed. Usually it's Satya, Dwarka, Treta, and Kali. And so they sort of switch places in this particular cycle. And, it's described in this particular cycle, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears too. So it's a very special cycle. I mean, once in a day of Lord Brahma, something like that. I was just reading about that. All right. Who else has a question? Oh, Rishikesh, I see you have a question.
I just am interested to hear about the history of Mucukunda. Did he get any benediction from any sage that he will get a personal darshan of the Lord? I mean, I just want to hear what did he do to qualify?
What did he do? Well, he had at least what we've been reading in Krishna book is he had the association of a great father, Mandata, and born in the family of Ikshvaku, so they're all devotees. And he was serving the Vaishnavas, the demigods. So whether he got a specific blessing or not, I have not read that, or he did something very specific other than fighting for the demigods and other than being born in a very auspicious family.
And also said that Gurudev, Mucukunda was born as Narsi Mehta in Gujarat in his next birth. Is that correct? That's
He
what
was
I'm
born
hearing.
as what?
A great Brahmin devotee called Narsi Mehta in Gujarat.
It's possible, yeah. That might be a story in the Puranas. Prabhupada didn't tell that story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very possible. Whoops. So, wait a second. Someone's trying. No, thank God they gave up. So, okay. So here's a question. Actually, we just have time for 2 text questions. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. If a Parijata tree was gifted during the constructed house, why such a Brahma requested Krishna from heavenly planets, or she requested before the construction of the house? I was actually thinking that when I read this chapter tonight. Why? Not so much why Satyabhama requested her own plant, but why Indra got so angry that Indra got so angry that the plant. So many beeps. So Indra got so angry that the plant was brought from the heavenly planets when he had previously given it. That was my question, or thought. And frankly, I don't know the answer to that, But I can think, why did Satyabhama request it? Because she wanted her own Parijata plant. Because Satyabhama I mean, Satyabhama wanted to know Parijata plant because Rukmini had been given one Parijata flower. And that was competitiveness. So I understand the reason for that. But the other question, which is in my mind, was why did Indra get so angry that a Parijata plant, he was thinking Parijata only belongs in the heavenly planets, but why do you have it here? Why are you taking it? So perhaps we can find out the answer to that for tomorrow. And one more question. Whoever takes shelter of Krishna gets all their desires fulfilled. Then why devotees who have taken shelter of Krishna go through miseries? Because Krishna, that's actually a very good question. Because Krishna knows our ultimate desires. You know, we have, or needs. I mean, just to be more specific, needs. You know, what do you actually want? I mean, if you have a list of your priorities, first priority, I want to be Krishna conscious. Second priority, I want to have a lot of money. Third priority, I want a nice car. Fourth priority, try to think what else, nice house. I mean, anyway, so what Krishna does is he understands your priorities. And for devotees, their priority is what? Hopefully, to be Krishna conscious and be pure. And then Krishna prioritizes his interactions with you. And ultimately, here's another one. Sometimes devotees desire freedom from miseries. Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, etc. But ultimately, the only way here's another answer to that question. The only way desires are actually fulfilled is if you become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, according to Krishna in the Gita, Avritam Gyaname Tena Gyanino Nichavarana Kamarupena Kontya Dushparena Lenacha, then it burns like fire, your desire, and it doesn't get satisfied. And, you know, we've all experienced that in this world, that whatever you get, it doesn't fulfill our desires. I think that's even a better answer. It doesn't really fulfill our desires. Fulfilling the desires means to extinguish them so they're no longer bothering you, isn't it? Isn't that what fulfilling desire means? According to my dictionary. If you say I fulfill the desire and I still want everything, or I still want that thing, you know, after I got it and I would want more, then your desire has not really been fulfilled. Good answer. Okay, on that happy note, please pray that I can go traveling soon. So, we will end here and we will continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Srila